Most of us go through our day without really reflecting on what we're doing or what's going on around us. We all have a billion thoughts a day, but eventually all of those thoughts just disappear into the rest of the noise. Sitting down and really taking the time to reflect can really help with mental clarity. I've been journaling since I was a kid. I remember being really embarrassed about the fact that I used to journal, and I remember trying to hide my journal from my brothers. But I feel like as I've gotten older, it's become more acceptable almost. I feel like it's really embraced as a healthy habit to have, especially for our mental health. It's even seen as something that's quite productive these days. And there's good reason for that, because there's so much power in journaling. It can really help you to express yourself, explore your feelings, think things through, reflect on events, and even track memories. And that last one is definitely my favourite thing about journaling. Journaling is where my past, present, and future self meet. It creates a record of who you were at a specific time. So I can read through my journals and read the exact thoughts that I had as an 11-year-old, a 16-year-old, an 18-year-old, a 21-year-old. I can trace back to every major milestone and event of my whole existence, and I can pinpoint exactly how I was feeling. It's almost like meeting an old friend. And even though I really do want to live in the present, I do feel that by looking back, I can sometimes see how far I've actually come. And it also gives me guidance with where I'm going, because there's definitely lessons that I've learned in the past, and journaling sometimes reminds me of that. It can really be a compass to where I want to go. The actual act of writing in a journal really keeps me in the present, and that's why it's such a great mindful activity for me. Journaling is one of the few places in my life where I don't actually have much structure. I don't set myself limits to write a certain amount or to write so often. I don't try to write so that it makes sense or so that it's coherent. I don't try to make my handwriting seem really neat. Sometimes I might add photos or drawings. Sometimes I might just write one word or one sentence. It's basically my place to be as messy as I want, as illogical as I want, and definitely as emotional as I want. There's no pressure, and I think that's why I find journaling so empowering and so special, because it's one of the few places that I can go where I can be completely myself without worrying about judgment. I don't have to fit in here or to be liked here, and it's a place that I can go and know that I'm being understood, even if the person who is understanding me is me. So how do you create this magical habit for yourself? Here are some things that you might want to consider. When and how often do you want to journal? I personally think that the answer should be whenever you want. This is the one habit of mine where I don't really have structure, and I don't really believe in consistency because I want it to feel natural and organic to me. But maybe you're somebody who would forget to journal unless you set yourself that structure. So you might need the guidance where you write in your journal every single day at the same time so that you remember to do it, and in that way you can build towards making it a habit. You might be somebody who needs to write 1 page a day to make sure that you're writing enough and not just giving up on it. Another thing that you might want to think about is whether you want it to be digital or on paper. There's going to be loads of people who prefer the digital option because they like to search for things more easily, they like to reduce their clutter, and they like to edit as they write. But maybe you're somebody who needs a pen and paper in your hand in order to feel connected, because I'm definitely somebody like that. So once you've figured those two things out, you still open up a notebook and you're still faced with a blank page. Now what? I always write the date and sometimes the time. And then I usually think of any life updates that have happened since I last wrote in my journal. I think about what's story-worthy, what's something that I want to remember. Was there anything that someone said to me that really made me smile that I don't want to forget about? Or equally, was there something that really got to me that I still have to work through emotionally? Sometimes I even just print out a photo from a recent outing and just put the date on it and glue that in, and that's it. I'm definitely very freestyle when it comes to journaling. My journal is basically a collection of memories, thoughts, and feelings that I can look back on. However, I have been journaling for such a long time that I think I'm really fine-tuned into how I'm feeling and knowing what feels right. Whereas if I was starting out, I probably would want more structure. So with that, I thought I'd give you a few ideas to get started with journaling. So I think one of the best places to start, especially if you're not into writing or you're not a particularly reflective person, is to use journaling prompts. These are basically questions to help guide you into the journaling process. It makes you think about just that question, and that way you can be a lot more structured and not have to second guess what to write. You can either Google journaling prompts and just answer one question a day, or you can also buy journals that have journaling prompts in them and just spend 5 minutes writing every day answering those questions. Another great technique to use is something called morning pages. This is a writing technique that was shared by Julia Cameron in the book The Artist's Way. I see so many people on YouTube doing this, and it basically involves starting journaling off as the first thing that you do every day and filling 3 sides of paper with anything that comes to mind. So it's basically just a stream of consciousness. So you just write whatever you think, almost as if it's a brain dump. It basically means that any of the first thoughts that you have on the day get transferred onto that piece of paper. You don't have to think about what you write, and you don't even have to make sense. But by trying to fill 3 pages, it's going to bring a lot up to the surface. And in that way, you can bring about so much more clarity and so much more creativity. Writing 3 pages a day definitely can seem like a really difficult task for some people. And if you're one of those people, then you might want to consider just writing 1 line a day. It could be writing a quote that resonates with you, or a line that sums up the day, or even just writing out a goal. It may sound insignificant compared to something like morning pages, but the fact that you have to be so concise with that 1 line means it will force you to reflect even more. You'll have to think about your thoughts and feelings and think about what's significant for just that one day. Another journaling technique that I've personally used in the past is writing a letter with the intention of not sending that letter to someone. I think this is such an amazing way to gain clarity from a situation and sometimes to gain closure. You might want to write to someone who has personally hurt you, or someone who you hope to get forgiveness from, or you might want to write to someone who's no longer in your life. I feel like this technique can really help you to put words onto paper, because when you're visualizing someone, it's so much more easier to understand how you're feeling and what words you want to put across. You may even want to write to your past or future self, and those sorts of letters can be really amazing to look back on and see how far you've come. So as well as my main journal, I've also kept a gratitude journal. So every day I write 3 things that I'm grateful for. And I really do think this is a powerful way of being more positive and more humble. I feel like sometimes we're constantly chasing things, whether it's goals or dreams or material things. There's always that need to have more. And sometimes I think it's great to just reel that back in and be appreciative of what you already have and where you are in this moment. And by doing this every day, you really do become grateful for even the most smallest of things. You might be somebody who's not really into that sort of stuff, so you might not be into your feelings or just thinking about insights and things like that. You might be all about productivity, and that doesn't mean that journaling's not for you. If anything, you might want to journal about your goals every single day. You could write about your progress and track your accomplishments, and I feel like in that way you can actually build momentum towards your goals. You could also journal for problem solving. So this is something that I also sometimes do when I freestyle journal. Whenever I have a problem, I write the problem at the top of my journal, and then I write any ideas I have about it. I make pro-con lists, and I think of the best case and worst case situation. It helps me to put that problem into perspective, and it really helps me to deal with that problem in a much healthier way. There are endless methods and endless possibilities with journaling, and maybe a video like this complicates things a lot more than they need to be. The reality is, like with anything, journaling is just about getting started. It's about opening up that blank Word document or opening up that notebook and getting a pen out and just seeing what comes up. As you get started with journaling, you'll definitely figure out what works for you, and you'll build your own relationship with journaling, and that relationship could end up lasting you a lifetime. So keep intentional and go create some magic in your life.